Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this episode 3813 AN. Today's date is January 7th, 2026, and the title of the episode is Newsom wants to confiscate your Bitcoin. Trump is shutting down the central bank plan. Hey, listen, if you're over 40 and planning to retire someday, the window to protect what you've built may be smaller than you realize. Here's a question most people never ask. Is your portfolio built for what's coming next? Many investors in their 40s and 50s discover they have little to no exposure to precious metals. That means their savings are largely tied to markets, policies, and paper assets, with very little protection if conditions change. As retirement moves from someday to on the horizon, protecting what you have already built becomes just as important as growing it. That's where Noble Gold Investments come in, helping investors reduce risk by adding physical gold to their portfolios. Right now may be a smart time to talk with Noble Gold Investments. No pressure, no sales gimmick, just clear answers and strategy built around our goals. Visit X22Gold.com and build your portfolio for the long term. That's X22Gold.com, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, the deep state, the corrupt politicians, the private West Central Bank, the World Economic Forum. You can see that Trump now is shutting down the central bank plan, the World Economic Forum plan, because remember, they were trying to bring us into the Green New Scam, the Great Reset. And since Trump implemented the tariffs, you can see that those nations that were following the Green New Scam, that were having trouble in the first place, now their economies are actually imploding on themselves. And you can see that here in the United States, out in California, because they've been following the Green New Scam. And you can see that California is not getting that influx of money from the federal government. So they are now struggling right now. A lot of businesses, a lot of people, they're moving out of California. When you look at the Eurozone, you can see Germany, that was the template of the Eurozone, to follow the Green New Scam. And since they've been doing this and moving away from oil, you could see that their manufacturing has been imploding, and you could see the entire country, their entire economic system, it has been shrinking. And it's getting worse and worse as time goes on. Now, since Trump said, okay, we're going to be placing tariffs on Germany and many other nations, you could see that Germany is struggling right now, and it's just going to get worse before it gets better, because they're going to have to try to turn all of this around to make things better. And when you look at the German trade surpluses, they're shrinking right now, with 2025 exports to the U.S. projected down 7% and overall trade surplus far below 2024 levels. So since tariffs stepped in, the Eurozone has struggled with exports and hasn't even retaliated to them. A passive approach that shows off all its weakness and above all is sinking the economy of its major member, Germany. Germany was already stuck with a negative GDP growth before tariffs, but the latter are acting as a final blow for the third economy in the world. Germany's total exports in 2024 amounted to 1.63 trillion. 11% of these goods were exported to the U.S., the main trading partner. Just this data says a lot. In fact, Germany used to rely on the U.S. to generate billions and billions of trade surpluses. Now, almost every European good exported to the U.S. is subject to a 15% tariff, which is making German goods less convenient for U.S. companies. We know that the latter pay most of the tariffs, and this means bearing higher costs of goods sold, therefore lower profits. Companies don't like to reduce their net profit margin, so it's not a surprise they're all looking around to find new trading partners. And you can see there's a lot of manufacturers within Germany. They decided, you know something, instead of paying all these tariffs and taking the hit, why don't we just move our entire production over to the United States? And we're starting to see a lot of these companies start to do this. And I do believe in the end, the people of Germany, the people of the Eurozone, they're going to have to make a decision. Do you want to continue down the path of the Green New Scam, the Great Reset, or do you want to take control of your economic system? Because the United States is moving in a completely and utterly different direction. The United States is moving away from the central bank system. And when you look at the Eurozone, they're moving towards the Green New Scam, the Great Reset. So you're going to see a very, very big difference. I mean, you're seeing the very big difference here in the United States because California, many of the blue states, they're moving towards the Green New Scam. They're moving towards the Great Reset. And Trump is moving the entire country in an opposite direction. So those states that follow Trump and they're on board with all this, their economies are going to actually do very, very well. When you look at the blue states, their economies are going to be absolutely horrific. And what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to try to go internally into their state because they won't be getting the federal money. They'll have to go internally into their states to try to make up the difference. And this is when everything really starts to fall apart, because when you start taxing people, stealing their wealth and everything else, the people aren't going to just sit by and go, okay, yeah, you know what? Take my Bitcoin, take my wealth, take more taxes. This is great. When they look around and they say, hey, look, I got relatives in Texas, I got relatives in Florida, I got relatives in Tennessee, and they're not going through any of this. So they're going to have to make a decision, and they're going to say, you know something, maybe we shouldn't be in California. A lot of the companies are going to be doing this also. So you're going to see a lot of things change as we move forward, especially now since we are now getting the oil from Venezuela. And I do believe this is going to be a game changer because, again, they've been holding back all this oil. Now this oil is going to be hitting the market. I don't mean it's going to happen tomorrow, but eventually it's going to start to hit the market, and you're going to see oil prices really start to come down, especially when you look at Iran. When we have regime change there, and I don't mean the United States, when the people of Iran overthrow their installed leaders, I should say, all of a sudden you're going to see everything change in the Middle East. So the central bankers wanted the oil supply to be scarce. And they would say, hey, look, there's no oil. Let's raise the prices. This is what they've been doing. Trump is now doing the opposite. And what's very interesting, Disclosed TV put this out, U.S. Energy Secretary says, let's just engage with reality. Oil and gas and coal are what run the world. Full stop. We can't make a wind turbine or a solar panel or a nuclear power plant without massive amounts of oil and gas and coal. That's how the world works. And what we're going to do is we're going to take the oil from Venezuela. We're going to pay for it. That money's going to go directly to the people, not to the regime. And you're going to see that Venezuela is going to start to become very, very wealthy again. And I do believe eventually what's going to happen is they're going to have fair elections. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the following: I am pleased to announce that the interim authorities in Venezuela will be turning over between 30 and 50 million barrels of high-quality sanctioned oil to the United States of America. This oil will be sold at its market price, and that money will be controlled by me as President of the United States of America to ensure it is used to benefit the people of Venezuela and the United States. I have asked Energy Secretary Chris Wright to execute this plan immediately. It will be taken by storage ships and brought directly to unloaded docks in the United States. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So this oil is just sitting there, and that's 30 to 50 million barrels that are going to be brought into the United States, which is actually going to lower the oil prices. So we're going to see everything start to change right now, and this is going to be absolutely incredible. And what does that really mean? It means the U.S. is now the sole Venezuelan oil distributor seller worldwide. So think about this for a second, and think about all the oil that's coming onto the market. And what you saw during the Biden/Obama administration, where you saw oil prices go up and gas prices start to go up, you're going to see the opposite here. And think about it. We haven't even got to the point where Venezuela is completely and utterly up and running. The oil manufacturers, producers, once they get in there and they start to produce, we're going to see everything start to change. Doge AI Texas put this out and said, the U.S. move to control Venezuelan oil sales isn't a distraction. Hey, listen, if you're over 40 and planning to retire someday, the window to protect what you've built may be smaller than you realize. Here's a question most people never ask. Is your portfolio built for what's coming next? Many investors in their 40s and 50s discover they have little to no exposure to precious metals. That means their savings are largely tied to markets, policies, and paper assets, with very little protection if conditions change. As retirement moves from someday to on the horizon, protecting what you have already built becomes just as important as growing it. That's where Noble Gold Investments come in, helping investors reduce risk by adding physical gold to their portfolios. Right now may be a smart time to talk with Noble Gold Investments. No pressure, no sales gimmick, just clear answers and strategy built around our goals. Visit X22Gold.com and build your portfolio for the long term. That's X22Gold.com, or just click the link in the description. And remember, past performance may not be indicative of future results. Investing in precious metals involves risk. Consult your financial advisor before making investment decisions. It's strategic leverage. For decades, Venezuela's resource fueled corruption and instability, while American energy dominance was undermined. This action mirrors the tariff playbook. Apply maximum pressure to reset the terms, then use concessions to rebuild. The stored oil release jumpstarts market recalibration, while future production control ensures revenue flows through accountable channels, not Maduro's cronies or Beijing's backdoor deals. Critics miss this point. This isn't about confiscation. It's about dismantling a narco-state economic engine and replacing it with transparency. Energy Sector Secretary Chris Wright plan aligns with proven American first doctrine. Force structural change through economic dominance, not endless aid. The goal? A stable, productive Venezuela that doesn't export chaos or rely on Chinese-Russian lifelines. Realignment takes pressure, and this is pressure applied correctly. And yes, when you open up that market of oil, everything changes. And think about it, as the gas prices continually drop, that is going to actually counter the inflation that the central bank has been causing. And you have to remember, the inflation is cumulative over time. This is why we've never gotten back to 1971 prices. They could tell you inflation is zero right now. But again, does that mean we go back to 1971 prices? No, because inflation is cumulative. So what we're seeing today is inflation is being brought down annually, and Trump is getting inflation under control compared to what Biden/Obama has done. And with fuel prices dropping, it's going to seem like inflation is dropping dramatically. Trueflation put this out and said, Trueflation U.S. inflation is back to its downtrend after a higher weekend. Trueflation U.S. CPI inflation today, 1.87%. Trueflation U.S. PCE inflation, 1.89%. The latest drop from 1.95% to 1.87% was driven by the housing category, with more decreases on the horizon. Our CPI index, calculated from millions of price data points, has remained below 2% since December 30th. So Trump has the inflation under control, and now he's going to return the buying power back to the people, slowly but surely. And one way of doing that is to lower the gas prices. Yes, the other way to do this is remove the taxes. And I do believe this is all going to happen. And like we said from the very beginning, we could see there are many, many companies now that are moving out of the Eurozone, moving out of the UK, and bringing their production here to the United States. And as the energy declines and it gets cheaper and cheaper and cheaper, the manufacturers are going to say, this is incredible. Trump is getting rid of the regulations. Energy is declining, and there's no inflation in the U.S., and there's billions of dollars coming in via tariffs. And we can actually really compete if we produce in the United States. And what do we see happening? Well, Amuse put this out and said, Rolls-Royce is planning to possibly relocate its $1.6 trillion ultra-fan jet engine program to the U.S., creating 40,000 jobs, citing labor government policies as the reason. So once again, they're looking at their own countries, and they're seeing the regulations. They're seeing the central bank put a lot of pressure. They're seeing the inflation. They're seeing that their economies aren't growing, and it's not very productive to be in those economies because they're pushing the Green New Scam. When they look at the United States, what are they seeing? They're seeing that we are not heading in the Green New Scam direction. They see that we're going to be using oil. We're going to be using gas. They see regulations being removed. They see, wait a minute, are we going to be removing taxes from people, which means a lot more people are going to want to work? We're going to find that labor that we need. And as fuel prices come down, they're going to say, listen, we can manufacture very, very cheaply. We can create the products. We can manufacture. We can deliver. We can do all these things. So everything is now changing. And you can see that everything that Trump is doing, he's pushing the stock market higher. Inflation is coming down. More jobs are being created. Gas prices are coming down. And gold and silver and Bitcoin, they will be moving up. Amuse put this up and says, U.S. markets surged to historic levels early in 2026, with the Dow Jones topping 49,000 and the S&P 500 reaching record high. The gains followed sustained growth under President Donald Trump's leadership. Investors rewarded a stable policy environment focused on domestic production, tax relief, and energy independence. America remained the strongest economy in the world as a capital flowed toward U.S. assets. Absolutely. And that's exactly what we're experiencing right now. And we're going to see more and more manufacturers, companies jump ship in the other countries and move to the United States. And once again, the United States is going to become a manufacturing powerhouse. And as we wean ourselves off the central bank system and we go directly to tariffs, you're going to see the central bank system is going to have a very, very difficult time. Now, the other thing that's very interesting is now Trump, he is now countering the deep state plan, the central bank plan, to actually bring us into the Great Reset, the Green New Scam. Now, think about what they were doing. Number one, they had the Green New Scam. They were trying to raise oil prices, which they were doing under Biden/Obama, which then forced the Green New Scam, which is solar and wind and electric cars and everything else. Plus, they were having institutions buy up as many homes as possible. Actually, when you do this, all of a sudden prices start to move up because there's scarcity and nobody's really living in these homes except the big institutions. They own them. So this drives up the prices and forces people to rent. Think about that for a second. And then you have the rates moving up, which makes it very difficult to get a mortgage. And remember, the Central Bank, the World Economic Forum, their plan was to have people actually own nothing and they will be happy. Now Trump, he decided to reverse all of this. All the homes that the institutions have been purchasing, they won't be doing this anymore, which means the prices of homes are going to start to come down and people will be able to get it. And actually, since the supply now is going to come onto the market, the prices are going to come down. Trump, he put this out on Truth. He said the following: for a very long time, buying and owning a home was considered the pinnacle of the American dream. It was the reward for working hard and doing the right thing. But now, because of the record high inflation caused by Joe Biden and Democrats in Congress, that American dream is increasingly out of reach for too many people, especially younger Americans. It is for that reason and much more that I'm immediately taking steps to ban large institutional investors from buying more single-family homes, and I'll be calling on Congress to codify it. People live in homes, not corporations. I will discuss this topic, including further housing and affordability proposals and more, at my speech in Davos in 2 weeks. Basically telling the World Economic Forum, yeah, you know the plan that you had where people weren't going to own anything and they were going to be happy, and you were trying to bring us into the Great Reset where the central bank was going to have complete and utter control of all currency and they could shut people's accounts down wherever they want or whenever they want. Well, that's coming to an end. I shut down the Green New Scam. I'm shutting down the institutions buying homes. Everything now is being reversed. And soon, the central bank system will cease to exist the way you know it. And like we said in the very, very beginning, you can see that Newsom, he's becoming very, very desperate because, again, he's not getting the federal funds. You can see a lot of the funds that have been going to Minnesota, Iowa, Ohio, California, Colorado, New York, and many other places, they have been shut down right now. And you can see that these states are going to be hurting because they depended on the federal funds and the money laundering to launder everything in their state. So if you don't get the funds externally, what do you do? And think about the central bank. If you don't get the funds externally, what do you have to do? You have to go internally and get the money from the people. Isn't that what the central bank is? Well, this is what Newsom is about to do. So Newsom has signed a bill allowing the state to transfer custody of any Bitcoin or cryptocurrency held on exchanges after 3 years of inactivity. Under the law, the inactive accounts on centralized exchanges are classified as unclaimed property. So let me just get this straight. If I'm in California and I have a Bitcoin account and I am just holding that money in the account, just in my bank account, I have a savings account in a separate bank where I just store my money and I haven't touched it in 3 years. The state has the right to go in and confiscate it? Think about that for a second. That's what they're saying they're going to do to Bitcoin. So once again, they're going to try to go internally to get those funds. Number one, I would never store any type of cryptocurrency in an exchange. It's almost like a banking system. And you know what the banks do? They'll give any of these individuals access to your accounts. So number one, I would not keep it in exchange. It's my personal opinion. I would keep it maybe in cold storage out of the exchanges. This way they can't access any of that. So if you have an exchange that's in California, because if the exchange is outside of California, then they really can't touch it. But again, you could see what he's trying to do here. So once again, they're going internally to get these funds because they are now struggling. And this is what happens. This is why the central bank went after the people's money, because that's how their system runs. They're not taking money in externally because you can't enslave a people that way. The only way you can enslave a people is to say, okay, listen, you borrowed this money, now you owe us. Keep working, keep working. And we're going to launder money all over the place while you keep paying for the interest on all this money. And now you can see Trump he is now reversing all of this. And he's going to let the World Economic Forum know that their entire plan, well, it's just been flushed down the toilet. The United States is not heading that direction. We're not going with the Green New Scam. We're not going with the central bank digital currency. We're not going with a central bank system. We're now reversing all of this. And your plan now is being countered and it's being shut down. And I do believe as time goes on, the people are going to feel the benefit of the new system. I think people are already starting to feel it. But I do believe as we go throughout this year, it's going to get better and better and better. And people are going to be absolutely amazed at the difference between a central bank system and a Trump tariff system. And people, they're going to want more and more of that. And there's nothing the central bank can do at this point because, again, what are they going to do? Say, hey, we're going to tax you more. You got to pay more on interest. We're going to take more from you. No, they're kind of trapped in all of this. Trump, the Patriots, they know this. And like we said from the very beginning, going back in time, Trump is just doing the opposite of what the central bank did when they came into existence. They weaned us off the tariff system. We went full central bank. Trump now is bringing the tariff system online and weaning us off the central bank and bringing and actually going to external funding of the government. So in the end, you could see where this is all headed. And eventually what's going to happen as gold continually rises, as silver continually rises, as Bitcoin continually rises, what's going to happen is Trump eventually is going to say, all right, we're at the point where we need to see if we have any gold. Because look, the price of gold is at 8,000, 9,000, 10,000. Now we got to go see, do we have the gold? And I do believe we're going to find out we have a lot more gold than anyone could ever imagine, which is going to give Trump quite a bit of leverage. And once this is out there, you're going to see the central bank system buckle under its own corruption. And soon that will be then restructured into the Treasury. And we will then remove ourselves from that entire system and go directly onto the tariff system. And people will get their buying power back as Trump pays back the debt. Not the full debt probably, but the debt the people that the people actually owe. Because again, I think a lot of it has been done through criminal activity, as we're seeing throughout the country. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and it's supposed to be prepared. Thanks a lot.